Okay.
Good morning. We're in Parshat Balak, a very interesting parasha, and we'll have to discuss today the end of the parasha because I didn't want to start with the beginning. It's too complicated. Has a lot of midrashim. You have to see the explicit nevuot that Balak says, and then to understand the midrash. So let's deal with the last part of the parasha before the chet of the shittim at the end of the parasha. ויאמר בלעם אל בלק. Bil'am pays attention because he doesn't succeed, and he tells Balak, "Bnei baze shiv'a mizbachot." So please build me 7 altars, and then ani akrib korban, whatever. And then the blessing or the curse will be accepted. שואל המדרש, ולמה 7 מזבחות? Why do you have 7 altars? אומר המדרש, כנגד 7 מזבחות שבנו 7 צדיקים, מאדם ועד משה, ונתקבלו. אדם, so according to the Torah, we don't know that אדם הראשון built מזבח, we just know about הבל. הבל, Noach is explicit when he gets out of the ark. He brings a korban. The chidush of the midrash is Adam, and we have it in many midrashim, many places. Yitzchak, not sure, but it's written explicitly. Maybe it's Akedah, Nechshav, is considered the same Mizbeach, I don't know, but I don't think that Yitzchak is ever, was ever Makriv Korban. Yaakov, it's explicit. Uchozer, he comes back from Beit Lavan, and then he does the neder that he has said in Bet El when he escaped from Esav. Moshe. שהיה אומר, למה קיבלת את אלה? So the taina, the claim of בלעם, is למה קיבלת את אלה? לא בשביל עבודה שעבדו לפניך קיבלתם? So he thinks that the Korban itself, the present to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is a physical gift that man gives to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, stands for itself. And he says, למה קיבלת את אלו? לא בשביל עבודה שעבדו לפניך קיבלתם, because of the work, because of the worship, לא נאה לך שתהיה נאבד מ70 אומות ולא מאומה אחת. So Bil'am comes and deals with a very gentle point of view that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose just 1 out of 70, and he thinks that HaKadosh Baruch Hu prefers many more than the one, and he doesn't understand the uniqueness of Am Yisrael, the chosen nation, and he wants, maybe it's similar to Korach, that he understands that כי כל העדה כולם קדושים, one is less than many, and Balak really looks, Bilam really looks on the numbers, בשיבו רוח הקודש, regarding using the Pasuk in Mishlei, טוב בת חרבה, מבית מלא זבחי ריב. So it's better to eat a dry piece of bread, טוב, so the בת חרבה, the Midrash understanding, it's not just a dry bread, but pat. What does a pat symbolize? Pat is kemach and mayim. We find it in the mincha. And in mincha, we know from Vayikra that we have mincha chariva. Tov mincha blula v'shemen b'chariva, meaning that it's been dried out. מבית מלא זבחי ריב, so the house is full, you want all the nations to be מקריב to הקדוש ברוך הוא, שאתה רוצה להכניס מריבה ביני ובין ישראל. So from here, it's clear that the answer to Bil'am is not that הקדוש ברוך הוא prefers one on many. הקדוש ברוך הוא doesn't answer like this, he just says that bringing the many would definitely require fighting and quarrel between them. So, לכאורה, הקדוש ברוך הוא answers that if you were a one of peace, like the Mashiach, that he is a man of peace and encompasses all the nations together worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu without milchama, with just peace and everything is possible. That's perfect. So, but you yourself, as I see, your own interest is just in bringing anger and fight, and that's why it's not מקובל. ויעש בלק כאשר בלעם.
Is there a logical reason? Sorry, is there a logical reason why Aaron wasn't mentioned? I mean,
Actually, no.
He's the top person.
I have no answer. No idea. You're right. Vayas Balak. By the way, for your comment, pay attention that in all the parasha of Bil'am, even Moshe is not mentioned. You see just Balak, and according to Chazal, he fights against Moshe. And Mamash, Chazal made a competition. ולא קם בישראל כמשה עוד. Chazal said, but באומות העולם קם. Right? So it's mamash a competition, whether the big prophet of Umot HaOlam would succeed more than Moshe Rabbeinu. No, he didn't succeed because HaKadosh Baruch Hu turned apart his prophecy. And Moshe's name is not mentioned in the Parsha at all. I think that the Torah, what I think, I didn't find it anywhere, is that Torah doesn't want to make it, like a debate between Moshe and Bilam. The Torah does it very gently, indirectly, but without mentioning the name of Moshe. Because at the end of the parasha, you see that Balak is a Machti Am Israel, who is a Bnot Shittim, and according to Chazal, it's not even Chazal, it's written later in Parshat Pinchas, or Matot, Alohema, when he comes to the Milchemet Midian, so he brings a reason why do I have to fight with them, because זה הסיבה that בלעם בן באור החטיא את עם ישראל מזבלות השיטים. And it's not mentioned even explicitly in the parasha that it was just because of a piece of advice of Bilam, because I think it's the same thing, that there is an indirect competition between Bilam and Moshe, and Bilam won at the end of the day, because he wanted to curse, he didn't succeed, but at the end of the day, he won by sinning, making them sin. And Torah doesn't want to show Moshe, to depict Moshe as a loser. That's why the Torah doesn't mention his name at all. That Bilam has his own show with nobody here. So you don't have Moshe. That's maybe an answer for you. So you don't have Aaron as well. But you're right that talking about Korbanot, Aaron's name was to be mentioned. אוקיי, ויעש בלק כאשר דיבר בלעם, אז הוא מקריב, he brought all 7 elders, ויעל וילך שפי. Okay, so what does it mean to וילך שפי? We don't know the word, we know the נחש, שפיפון, but we don't know the שפי. So, the מדרש says, דעתו היה לקלל, שעד אותה שעה היה שפוי, ומן אותה שעה היה נטרד. So till now, all that Bilam or Balak does was, or Bilam does, was rational, he made it on purpose, he just didn't succeed. From now on, he's very perplexed. And from now on, all the deeds of Bilam will be complex and disturbed by other things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does. Vayiker Elokim El Bilam. So we know that instead of Vayikra, call, as we know, to Moshe, here you see Vayiker with Keri, with Tum'ah, with Shoresh. The root of Vayiker is Kuf Reish Yud, Kuf Reish Hey or Kuf Reish Yud, not like Kuf Reish Aleph, which is a call. ויקר אלוקים אל בלעם, אמר לו רשע, מה אתה עושה? אמר, את 7 המזבחות ערכתי. What do you want from me? I'm רשע? I'm making you worship. משל לשולחני המשקר במשקלות. You have somebody, some merchant that lies with with a weight. So בא בעל השוק והרגיש בו. So the person in charge, the משרד התעשייה, whoever, comes and checks his way, and he tells him, you're a liar. אמר לו, אתה משקר במשקל? אמר לו, כבר שלחתי דורון לביתך. don't talk to me, I've sent you a gift, a present, you shouldn't check me. אמר לו, כבר שלחתי את אורון לביתך. You see, you smile, but you see the cynical, sometimes you have such a liar that when you find that he lies, he thinks that it's a part of the game and he doesn't understand. So he's not perplexed that HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself tells him you're a liar. No, he said, okay, what do you want? A part of the game is that I've sent you some korban and you should be quiet. So he has a misunderstanding what is a korban, because he understands, like most of us, that korban is to let gods be silent. Yes, like the Greeks, like a lot of people feel indirectly that they feel that okay, I'll come to Shul in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and daven well, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu would reduce his paying attention about what I'm doing most of the year. It doesn't go like that. So, שלחתי דורון לביתך, I've learned 1 hour of Torah, I've sent you a korban, it doesn't help, ואף כך מילה. רוח הקודש אמר לו, רשע מה אתה עושה? Yeah? Here it says רוח הקודש, here you saw, it was like ממש הקדוש ברוך הוא himself. But here it's written רוח הקודש. אמר לו, את שבעת המזבחות ערכתי. אמר לו, again the same using פסוקים in משלי, טוב ארוחת ירק. So I want to be vegan this day. The vegetables that the Am Yisrael brought, it's much better than what you bring. And pay attention, it's very interesting. טובה סעודה שעשו ישראל במצרים, ואכלו על מצות ומרורים, מפרים שאתה מקריב על ידי שנאה. So it's not ממש vegan. Am Yisrael in Leila Seder, they ate basar of Korban Pesach, al matzot umerorim yochlu. So we don't know what a maror is. There are 5 options in the Mishnah and Pesachim, but we know that it's just the vegetable. And you know that, with a karpas, a lot of minagim, a lot of edot. Some bring even cucumber, some bring lettuce. So it has a lot of vegetarian meaning. The wrapping the Korban Pesach. So Am Yisrael Korban Pesach is something uniting. Ish nimne anaseh, bringing his own family, bringing his own friends to be leimanot, and then he wraps the main eating of the basar of Korban Pesach with vegetables, with maror. And you just want to make more. I don't eat vegetables. It's nothing, says Bilam. I bring you the real thing, meat, parim, bakar, cattle. So the Midrash says, no. מפרים שאתה מקריב על ידי שנאה. So again and again, we see the meriva here, and the sinah here. And the Midrash understands that more than the deeds of Bilam were wrong, his kavanah was wrong, because you can make what he wants to bring all the 70 nations among Am Yisrael and make a mutual avodat Elokim in order to worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu all together. That's maybe a possibility. The Midrash doesn't say it's impossible, but the Midrash says what's impossible is to combine all of it by hatred. Your kavanat alev has to be clean, and you do it just in order to nesachsech, laharos, to destroy, to make fights, etc. But it's interesting because we see here it's much like a sandwich, yes, that you eat in Leila Seder. You have the piece of bread, which is the matzot. You have the vegetarian part, the maror, and you have the meat, the hamburger, the meat inside. So here in the Midrash is mamash clear that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ke'ilu prefers. He says maybe it's less, you think it's less because it's full of vegetables, but it's better to me than the real meat. וישם השם דבר בפי בלעם, ויאמר שעיקם פיו ופיקמו, I don't know what פיקמו means, כאדם הקובע מסמר בלוח. So he made his mouse like this, okay, meaning that HaKadosh Baruch Hu not just put things that he wanted to change his mouse. He understood, he was, as we saw before, he was rational till now. He understood that now something wrong is happening and something bad comes to my mouth and I cannot do anything. רבי אלעזר אומר, מלאך היה מדבר, okay, not HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. We saw before Ruach HaKodesh, so he says מלאך, okay, whatever. ויאמר שוב אל בלק וכה תדבר. וישוב אליו, והנה ניצב על עולתו, הוא וכל שרי מואב. So he finds Balak standing with all the ministers of Moab, שהיו עומדים ומצפים מתי יבוא. So you see here is a complexity, the מבוכה, perplexity of Bilam, that he comes, everybody expects to his motza piv, everybody thinks that he's the biggest magician in the world and he'll succeed, and they're expecting he's come, and he comes and he doesn't have anything to say. וישא משלו ויאמר, מן ארם ינחני בלעם מהררי קדם. פתח ואמר, מן ארם, so usually when they stand, מן ארם, he stands on the hills of Aram. So פתח ואמר, מן ארמים הייתי, והורידני בלק לבאר שחת. So the Midrash plays with Aram and Ram. Yes, Aleph, the Midrash neglects, and it takes the word Aram not as a place that we know Aram Naharaim, etc., but Ram. Ken HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from the Ram place, from the high place, he took me to the lower place, and that's why, because I got involved in this situation, because of Balak, לבאר שחת. ינחני מלך מואב, כמה דעת אמרת, נהה על המון מצרים והורידהו. So ינחני, usually it means will lead me, will tell me what to do. But the Midrash uses a pasuk in יחזקאל ל"ב, נהה על המון מצרים והורידהו, meaning that it has the same meaning, to take somebody in a higher place and bring him down to a lower part. So he thought that he would upgrade himself, he would be given a lot of money and a lot of kavod, etc. But he went from the very beginning, he knows that he goes into a big hole. The end, it was his death. But now he knows that it's a big hole. דבר אחר, מן ארם, so the Midrash understands nicely, Aram, Am, Ram. So it's like a kitzur, Ayin and Aleph are changing because of Aleph and Ayin and Hey are all together. And Am, Ram, שלמעלן הייתי והורידני בלק מכבודי. Okay, so I was a part of the ministers, I was a part of the kings. I've spoken with just ministers and kings. אם ייתן לי בלק רבים ונכבדים מאלה, he says, that send me better שליחים, and now I am going down and down. משל למי שהיה מהלך עם המלך, ראה ליסטים, הניח את המלך ותיאלים הליסטים. So he walks with the king, and then he sees some, gang, and he walks with the gang, leaving the king. כשחזר אצל המלך, אמר לו המלך, לך עם אותו שטיילת עמי, שאי אפשר לך שתלך עמי. No longer do you come with me, now you'll go with your gang. כך בלעם נזקק לרוח הקודש, וחזר להיות קוסם כבתחילה, שנאמר, ואת בלעם בן באור הקוסם. So in יהושע י"ג, it's written that בלעם בן באור הקוסם. In this parsha, we don't see the word קוסם, never, because he comes, the קוסם, the magician, is his lowest stage. The Midrash understands that the very beginning of Bilam was higher, much higher than just a magician. לפיכך צווח רם הייתי והורידני בלק. So like a lot of people that we know from the Torah, like Haman, הקדוש ברוך הוא מסגיל הגויים ויעבדם, הקדוש ברוך הוא puts him in a higher place in order to let him fall into a big hole, and it's the same with Korach, and the same is here, and the same with Yonah Hanavi somehow. So we see here how he falls. דבר אחר, מן ארם ינחני, אמר לו, השווינו שנינו להיות כפויי טובה. אילולי אברהם אביהם לא היה בלק, שנאמר, ויהי ושחט אלוקים את ערי הכיכר, ויזכור אלוקים את אברהם, וישלח את לוט. So he makes a big calculation. Without, הקדוש ברוך הוא wanted to save Lot. So ויהי ושחט אלוהים את ערי הכיכר. When הקדוש ברוך הוא destroyed Sodom and Amorah in פרשת וירא, הקדוש ברוך הוא remembered Abraham, and just because of Abraham, he fled Lot. ולולא אברהם, לא פלט לוט מסדום. Without Abraham, the son is a son-in-law, is a nephew, Lot wouldn't escape. ואתה מבני בניו של לוט, ואילו ליעקב אביהם, לא הייתי אני בעולם, okay? You are from Moab, you are from the descendants of Lot. So just because of them, do I exist. שלא ראה לבן בנים, אלא בזכות יעקב. So the Midrash says more than that, not just that I'm a descendant. The only reason why לבן had בנים, אלא בזכות יעקב, שבתחילה כתיב ורחל באה עם הצאן, ואילו היו בנים מאח ביתו רועה. So usually we understand that he let the girls were had to be with the flock, but with no reason. We know that Lavan had banim because we know that he comes in Bnei Lavan and he talks to Bnei Lavan about Yaakov. So if you take the pshat, so you understand. So from the very beginning, he had sons and he had daughters, and somehow Rachel was his shepherd. I don't know why. Maybe like the daughters of Yitro that were punished by the society. I don't know. But maybe because he thought that in the old world, they won't find girls, they would let them be first, I don't know. But according to this Midrash, Lavan didn't have any sons till the beginning. And then, משהלך יעקב, נתנו לו בנים, שנאמר וישמע את דברי בני לבן. So according to the Midrash, Lavan's son couldn't be more than 20 at the most, like 19 or even less. וכן הוא אומר, ניחשתי ויברכני השם בגללך. So usually we understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has blessed him with a lot of mammon. He was very successful, but now the Midrash understands that all his sons were born just because of Yaakov. So I exist just because of the avot of this nation. So it's כפויות טובה. לך ארה לי, so לך ארה לי יעקב ולך זוהמה ישראל. So Lavan Bilam says that Balak has ordered me to curse Am Yisrael. Arali, to curse. מישהו מערער לעצמו מערער. שכך כתיב ומקללך האור ואומר עורריך האור. So again, the Midrash understands that in his own, it's nice because the Midrash brings to his speech. We usually think that the pshat is that he wanted to curse, at the end of the day, all the outcome of his speech turned into a blessing. But the Midrash wants to show that in each and every word of the speech itself, you can find how he turned into a blessing. So he starts from Aram, and the Aram doesn't mean just the nation from where I've come from, but that I have come from a higher point of view, and now I'm getting down. So he admits, he knows his situation. The second one told about his kfiyut tova, that he understands that I'm talking about the nation that gave me my own existence. I exist just because of the sons of Yaakov, the sons of Abraham. And even though I'm going to curse, now he understands, Lecha arali, Arali is not to, as we understand the pshat, Lecha Arali, Balak ordering Bilam, Lecha Arali, go and curse for me, Balak. No, Lecha Arali is for, Bilam talks about himself. I am cursing myself. He knows the famous blessing at the beginning of Parashat Lech Lecha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to Avraham, that if somebody curses you, he would be cursed. לך ארה לי יעקב ולך זוהמה ישראל. Sorry. אילו לאומה אחרת ביקש שאקלל כגון בני אברהם ויצחק, הייתי יכול, אלא יעקב מלך שבורר לעצמו מנה, ועמד אחד ואמר גנאי עליה, כלום יש לו חיים, ואלו חבלתו ונחלתו וסגולתו, שנאמר כי חלק השם עמו, יעקב חבל נחלתו וייתן לי סגולה. So again, the second time in this midrash, we find that Balak and Bilam are distracted, are blocked by Yaakov. Out of the three patriarchs, the Avot, they have a special problem with Yaakov. We saw it before, that even though that because of the Zchut of Avraham, Lot was fled, he mentions Yaakov, that Yaakov gave him the blessing of Banim. He gave him the continuity of the Moavian nation. But now he says, because of Yaakov, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose just Chelek Hashem Amo Yaakov, Chevel Nachalato, HaKadosh Baruch Hu just chose Yaakov, so now I cannot do anything. As if Keilu, if it was just the sons of Avraham and Yitzchak, maybe I could deal with them. But since it's explicit that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose just the Chelek of Yaakov, now I cannot deal with it. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu choose Yaakov? It's not clear here. But we know from different midrashim that Yaakov mitato shlema, meaning that his all sons are okay, unlike Avraham that is as Ishmael and Yitzchak as Esav. Yaakov's bed, meaning Yaakov's descendants, are all a part of the nation. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose him. It doesn't have to say that Yaakov is better than Avraham and Yitzchak, but it says that Yaakov just has something complete, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu can choose him. Ulchazo Ama Israel. So usually we understand the same word, Lecha Ara Li Yaakov, Lechazo Ama Israel, meaning the same. Melech Shenatan עטרה, נטל עטרה ונתנה בראשו, ואמר אדם שאינה כלום, יש לו חיים, ואלו כתיב בהן ישראל אשר בך יתפאר. So not only that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose Am Israel, but he coronated Am Israel and took them into his crown, like אשר בך יתפאר, something מפואר, something precious that I put on my crown. So how can I deal with them? מה אקוב לא כבו אל, בשעה שהיו ראויים להתקלל, לא נתקללו. So usually we understand, מה אקוב לא כבו אל, how can I curse if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not interested? But the Midrash says more than that. There was once a chance to Am Yisrael to get cursed, and even though they weren't cursed, כשנכנס יעקב ליטול את הברכות, נכנס במרמה. לכתיב את אורות גדיי העזים, הלביש על ידיו ועל חלקת צווארם. אמר לו אביו מי אתה? הוא תפס אותו על חם, יקרוא אותי. אמר לו אנוכי עשיו בכורך. So usually if you look in Rashi and you look in the other Meforshim, it's not so chamur, it's not so extreme what Yaakov did. Rashi tries to settle it down and says, Anochi, comma, Esav is bechorecha. Give me a break. but okay, Rashi understood that it's a problem, that Yaakov is a liar. Usually we understand Yaakov has a lot of lies, and we usually understand how is it possible that Yaakov is considered midato emet. And usually we understand that somebody that sits in the Beit Midrash and doesn't get out to the world, doesn't know how to deal with the world, usually is not midato emet, because he sits in a certain place that he doesn't have any eruv and any mixture with the world itself. But once you go to Beit Midrash and learn that, and then you get out to the world and work and find people and succeed in making Kiddush Hashem, that's why he's midato emet. That's a usual perush. But here is a Midrash understood negatively, that Yaakov was a liar and he shouldn't have lied. אמר לו אנוכי עשיו בכורך, מי שמוציא שקר מפיו ואינו ראוי להתקלל, so was a קטרוג on Yaakov, ולא עוד, אלא שנתברך. So even though שדכתיב גם ברוך יהיה, so you see that ממש ברכת אברהם was fulfilled in Yaakov. He tried to curse himself כאילו, as he said, אולי ימושני אבי והייתי בעיניו כי מתעתע והבאתי עליי קללה ולא ברכה. What he really was afraid of, and he told his mother that maybe he can touch me. It happened. And Yitzchak touched him, and Yitzchak was suspicious, and he was supposed to be cursed, and even though it's a Gam Baruch Yeh, so the Gam Baruch Yeh is mamash the fulfillment of Birkat Avraham in Yaakov. So now we see the linkage. We saw that he spoke several times, Bilam, about Avraham as the person because of which the Umat Moav existed. And he spoke more because of Yaakov, because Yaakov gave the continuity, blessing Lavan with sons. But now we see that Yaakov and Avraham relation is intrinsic. You see that while Avraham was said that if you curse, he would be blessed, and it happened. We don't know why, but it happened. It mamash when Yaakov had to be cursed. He was blessed. So what can I do? That's what Bilam says. דבר אחר, מה אקוב לא כבו כן, בנוהג שבעולם, it's a mistake, לגיון שמרד במלך חייב מיתה. So חס ושלום, if you have a battalion that made a rebellion, so חייב מיתה, ואלו כפרו בו ומרדו ואמרו אלוהי אלוהיך ישראל, לא היה צריך לכלותן. Okay, what can I do with that? אלא אפילו באותה שעה לא זז מחיבתן. Even then, he ליווה להם ענני כבוד ולא פסקו מהם המן והבאר. So we see here, you spoke about אהרון, you see here, אהרון זכות, מרים זכות. Yes, המן זה הבאר, הקדוש ברוך הוא likes somehow עם ישראל, even though he doesn't have any reason to, because they make problems. אוקיי, וכן הוא אומר, כי עשו להם עגל מסיכה, ואתה ברחמך רבים לא עשיתם כלה במדבר. עמוד הענן נוסר מעליהם, יאמר, ומנך לא מנעת מפיהם, ומים מסלע הוצאת להם. So Nehemiah explicitly, in his long speech about the Hasidim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the desert, he says, yeah, explicitly that everything happened, and Nehemiah himself understands that it's a problem, that they sinned heavily, and even though nothing happened. So, ואיך אני יכול לקללם? So you see that Bilam is very is very familiar with Jewish history. He knows everything about Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and he knows everything about what happened with them in the desert, and he takes it into account. And even though the conclusions that he makes out of it, that it's impossible to curse them. מה יקוב לו כבוקר? שהיה מצווה אותם על הברכות ועל הכללות, בברכות היה מזכירם, שנאמר, אלה יעמדו לברך את העם, סליחה. ובכללות לא היה תובען, שכן אומר, ואלה יעמדו על הכללה בהר עיבל. So, it's ממש, how do you say, מתבקש. You should have expected it, that when talking about curses and blessings about Bilam, you would have a reference to the blessing and the curses that we have in Har Gezim in Har Eival, in Kitavo, in Dvarim Kafret, which happens again in Sefer Yoshua, when they enter the Israel. So there is a diuk of the Midrash, Ele yamdu levarech het ha'am. So the cursing, the blessing is to the nation. And on the second side, the curse, you have just a location where they stand, but you don't have who they cursed. Chas v'shalom, it's mukhba, it's hidden. וכשהן חוטאים ואומר להביא עליהם קללה, אינו כותב אלא מביאה אלה בברכות, שהוא מביאה אלה בברכות ובעצמו מברכן. שנאמר, and the same thing, when you have the 98 curses of פרשת כי תבוא, so הקדוש ברוך הוא, in the ברכה, it's written, ונתנך השם אלוקיך עליון. It's explicit, that הקדוש ברוך הוא would give you the blessing. while in the קללה, בקללה לא היה תובען, שכן הוא אומר, והיה אם לא תשמעו, ובאו עליך. So as if it's מקרה, as if it's מעצמו. So usually we think that a person, if he behaves בדרך קרי, בדרך מקרה, so ובאו עליך כאילו מעצמם. So he turns to find himself in trouble כאילו מעצמו. But here you see that it's better to him, because when it comes מעצמו, not from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not the very hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's just something secondary, כאילו מעצמו. We'll finish in a minute because it gives us a sign that it's going to be, the Zoom is to be over. ובקללות, כן, הוא כתיב מראש צורים הראינו, להודיע שנאתו של אותו רשע, שמתוך ברכותיו אתה יודע מחשבתו. למה הדבר דומה? לאדם שבא לקוץ את אילן. person comes to cut the tree. מי שאינו בקיא קוצץ את הגופין, כל ענף וענף מתייגע. והפיקח מגלה את השורשים וקוצץ. So somebody try that is not familiar with cutting trees, he comes from the branches and he has a lot of work. הפיקח cuts the root, okay, את השורשים, and then in one time the whole tree dies. כך אמר אותו רשע, מה אני מקלל כל שבט ושבט, הרי אני הולך לשורשם. Instead of cursing each and every tribe, I'll go to the אבות. בא ליגע מצען קשים, שנאמר, כי מראש צורים הראינו. So ראש צורים meaning the head of the mountain, meaning אברהם אבינו and זה אבות. דבר אחר, כי מראש אלו אבות, ומגבעות אלו אמהות. So you see here the Midrash tries to make a lot of the speech of Bilam, and with that already end, a lot of the speech of Bilam has what we call in Hebrew grammar, tmura, meaning that sometimes I can say ha'avot, psik, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. So by saying Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, I didn't say I didn't add anything. I just explained who the avot are. So usually when he says הראינו ולא אתה, שורנו ולא קרוב, או he says כי מראש צורים הראינו מגבעות אשורנו, we think that he like Shira, like in Shira, he repeats himself and says תמורה, he says the same thing. The Midrash tries several times to make each and every word in his speech different, and that's why the Midrash says כי מראש אלו אבות ומגבעות אלו אמהות, meaning that he referred to the same thing, to the roots, but not to the same person. He didn't talk twice about the same person, but about different figures. Let's finish here. שבוע טוב. תודה רבה.
תודה רבה. Very good. Thank you.
תודה. להתראות.
Very interesting.